there are moments in the human journey when the soul begins to whisper truths that the waking mind has ignored for far too long. These whispers do not come during the noise of daylight, nor during the hours when we are busy pretending we are fine. They come in the soft hours of night, when the body surrenders and the spirit is finally free to speak. Dreams are the secret language of the inner world, messages carved into imagery, emotion, and symbolism, bypassing logic to touch the deepest chambers of conscience. For in dreams, we can no longer lie to ourselves. Dreams do not negotiate. Dreams do not flatter. Dreams do not soften what needs to be said. They reveal what your soul has seen, but your eyes have refused to notice. And when a person's life begins drifting away from its true center, when their values soften, when their clarity dims, when their strength is traded for comfort, when their purpose is buried under shallow pursuits, dreams will rise like lanterns in a dark room, illuminating the places where the self has begun to fracture. It is in these dreams that the soul warns of influences, both internal and external, that quietly weaken the spirit. Influences that do not come with claws or fangs, but with subtlety, sweet voices, gentle temptations, emotional seductions, cultural illusions, soft lies wrapped in comforting tones. These are what ancient storytellers once called witchcraft, not because they were supernatural, but because they worked through enchantment, the art of making a person willingly surrender what they would never give up if they were fully awake. For true danger rarely appears as danger. It appears as distraction. It appears as flattery. It appears as comfort. It appears as the easy road, the path that asks nothing of you while slowly taking everything from you. And so the soul speaks through dreams to break the spell, to wake the sleeper, to warn the wanderer, to call the lost one home, not to frighten, but to reveal, not to condemn, but to realign, not to dramatize darkness, but to illuminate the subtle ways in which the heart allows itself to be weakened. There are dreams that come when the spirit is under pressure. There are dreams that come when the spirit is under attack. But the most important dreams come when the spirit is being drained without realizing it. These are the dreams that appear not as nightmares, but as metaphors, symbols that feel strangely familiar, strangely personal, strangely urgent. Symbols that whisper, look deeper. Something beneath your surface is changing. Symbols that urge you to stop living on autopilot, to stop ignoring the quiet erosion of your strength, to stop accepting smallness as destiny. And once you begin to see these dreams, not as random mental noise, but as messages, you realize they are calling you toward inner realignment, toward reclaiming the parts of you that have been quietly slipping away. Every spiritually meaningful dream has the same purpose: to revive what has fallen asleep, to restore what has been stolen, to awaken what has been numbed, to strengthen what has been weakened. And before the dreams speak their 14 languages, you must understand the atmosphere in which they appear. An atmosphere shaped by the subtle forces that drain the soul not through violence, but through seduction, not through fear, but through indifference, not through threats, but through sweet distractions that feel harmless while corrupting the foundations of your inner life. These forces are not witches in the literal sense, but witchcraft in the metaphorical sense. Anything that shifts you away from truth and toward illusion, anything that encourages you to betray your purpose, anything that dulls your conscience, softens your resolve, or tempts you to exchange what is eternal for what is immediately gratifying. And so the first dream arrives like a quiet knock on a locked door, the dream in which you are running, endlessly running, chased by something you cannot quite name. You do not see the face of the pursuer, yet you feel its breath in the darkness behind you. This is not a dream of fear. It is a dream of avoidance. A dream that reveals the ways in which you are running from your own transformation, running from the discipline that would refine you, running from the truth that would reshape you, running from the calling that would demand more of you than you have been willing to give. The pursuer is not an enemy. It is the future self you keep trying to outrun. But the dream does not chase to terrify. It chases to awaken, because the person you are meant to become will pursue you until you stop escaping greatness out of habit. And as this dream fades, another emerges, the sensation of falling from a great height, the stomach dropping, the world rushing past you, the ground racing upward. But you never hit the bottom. You wake before impact, heart pounding, breath trembling. This dream comes when your inner foundation has begun to crack, when you are no longer grounded in your principles, when you have allowed the winds of pressure, comparison, or distraction to loosen your anchoring. Falling is the soul's way of saying you have built your life on the wrong thing, or you have stopped tending the roots that once kept you steady. And then the maze appears, the endless corridors, the looping hallways, the doors that lead to more doors. You search for an exit, but every path folds into another. This dream comes when you have been living not by conviction, but by the expectations of others. When the noise of the world has grown louder than the voice of your own conscience, when your life has become reactive instead of intentional, the maze is not punishment, it is diagnosis. It reveals that you have strayed into a life that does not belong to you, but the soul keeps speaking, and the dreams grow bolder. You find yourself trying to scream, but your voice will not come. Your mouth moves, but nothing emerges. This dream is a plea, a warning that your voice has been suppressed, perhaps by someone else's control, perhaps by the culture's demand for conformity, perhaps by your own fear of conflict or failure. The loss of voice in a dream is the loss of identity in waking life, and the soul uses this symbol to urge you. Speak. Speak truth. Speak even if your voice shakes. Speak, because silence will cost you more than honesty ever will. And the dreams continue. Your teeth crumble, your home floods, your treasures vanish, your past resurrects, your limbs become paralyzed, your surroundings shift, your battles fail, your wings falter, your eyes refuse to open. Each dream unfolding like a chapter in a sacred letter addressed to the deepest part of you. Each one revealing something about the battles you are fighting, the weakness you are tolerating, the deception you are believing, the potential you are neglecting. For dreams do not come to torment you, they come to teach you. They come to reveal where the light inside you is dimming. They come to show you which influences are draining your blessing. They come to guide you back to the spiritual alignment you have forgotten. And as these visions unfold, the soul prepares itself for the final dream, the threshold dream, the one in which you stand before a doorway you cannot seem to cross. A doorway glowing with possibility, radiating with the promise of a life far greater than the one you've known. Yet something inside you hesitates. Something clings to the shadows. Something fears what stepping through might require. This dream is the ultimate confrontation, not with darkness, but with destiny. For the doorway is your blessing, and the hesitation is the spell that's been cast over you, the spell of fear, the spell of comfort, the spell of smallness, the spell of false kindness, the spell of old wounds pretending to protect you. This dream is the soul's alarm bell ringing at full volume. Step through now. Step through before life passes and the threshold closes. And it is here, standing before the radiant doorway, that the journey of dreams transforms into a journey of awakening. Because awakening is nothing more than the moment you choose to step through the threshold your soul has been showing you night after night. And when you stand before that glowing threshold in the dream, something ancient stirs inside you, a recognition, a trembling, a memory of the life you were meant to build long before you learned to fear your own potential. The doorway is not new. It has always been waiting for you. You have walked past it in waking life 100 times without noticing, distracted by lesser urgencies, seduced by softer paths, convinced by borrowed fears that you were unready, unworthy, unfinished. But the dream strips all that away. Dreams do not care about your excuses. Dreams do not honor your delays. Dreams do not respect the wounds you use as reasons to stay small. They show you only the truth. You have always been standing at the edge of your own transformation. And still, Something in the dream resists. Something whispers that the threshold is too bright, that stepping through will cost too much, that you must gather more strength, more assurance, more validation before you dare to cross, but the light from the doorway answers this fear gently, as if it were speaking without words. The only way to become ready is to step into the place that demands readiness. For readiness is not a state of preparation, it is a state of surrender, a surrender to responsibility, to purpose, to the weight of becoming who you truly are. It is here, when the dream places you between fear and destiny, that you finally begin to understand why the 14 dreams came in the order they did. They did not arrive to frighten you, nor to mark you as cursed, nor to imply that some shadowy force is hunting your soul. They came to show you the architecture of your own sabotage, the ways in which your heart has collaborated with its own diminishment. They came to reveal the cracks that have quietly formed beneath the surface of your ambition, the distractions that have hollowed out the foundation of your purpose, the illusions that have made you forget the gravity of who you are supposed to become. For the truest witchcraft is not the spell cast by another, it is the spell cast when you forget your worth, and each dream peels away a layer of forgetfulness. The dream of being chased reveals the self you have outgrown. The dream of falling reveals the principles you have abandoned. The dream of the maze reveals the direction you have lost. The dream of losing your voice reveals the truth you have silenced. The dream of crumbling teeth reveals the confidence you have allowed to decay. The dream of rising floodwaters reveals the emotions you have ignored. The dream of vanished treasures reveals the blessings you have mishandled. The dream of familiar ghosts reveals the past you have resurrected. The dream of paralysis reveals the discipline you have postponed. The dream of foreign houses reveals the life that does not belong to you. The dream of endless battles reveals the wrong wars you have chosen. The dream of broken wings reveals the success not built on character. The dream of closed eyes reveals the illusions you have embraced. And the dream of the threshold reveals the destiny you have delayed. Each dream is a lantern, each lantern a step, and each step a calling. And as the dreams unravel the spell of smallness, you begin to recognize that the true witchcraft was never external. It was never a person plotting against you. It was never an enemy chanting in secret. It was never a curse cast from the outside. No, the real witchcraft was anything that caused you to live beneath your design, anything that weakened your spirit without you noticing, anything that replaced purpose with pleasure, responsibility with excuses, meaning with noise, clarity with distraction, anything that fed the ego while starving the soul. And the true purpose of these 14 dreams is not to warn you about what chases you, but to awaken you to what calls you, because the soul is always called upward, upward into responsibility, upward into truth, upward into strength, upward into abundance that cannot be shaken, upward into a life that does not collapse under pressure, upward into a love that does not depend on validation, upward into a purpose that cannot be manipulated by the world's illusion. And when you understand this, something shifts in the way you interpret your dreams, not as warnings, but as invitations, invitations to see the fractures that need healing, invitations to reclaim the blessings that were quietly draining, invitations to confront the forces that feed on your apathy, invitations to choose growth over comfort, clarity over fantasy, and integrity over the sweet temptations that once lulled you into spiritual sleep. For the soul is never targeted because it is weak. It is targeted because it carries something powerful. Blessings are not drained from the empty. Blessings are drained from the full. Dreams do not speak to the insignificant. Dreams speak to the chosen. And when the soul hears its own calling echo through the corridors of the night, it remembers a truth older than memory itself. Darkness is only concerned with those who are destined to shine. This is why the dreams come. Not to frighten you, but to remind you of your brightness. Not to warn you of danger, but to reveal your significance. Not to expose your vulnerabilities, but to restore your alignment. The dreams are messengers, not of fear, but of awakening. and awakening always comes before ascension. And it is here, at the edge of this realization, that the monologue continues deeper toward the rising of a soul that refuses to stay asleep. And as the soul begins to awaken from the long fog of its own neglect, you will notice that the dreams start to feel less like warnings and more like mirrors. Mirrors reflecting not who you are, but who you could become if you stopped cooperating with your own diminishment. For dreams are not simply reflections of the mind, they are reflections of the spirit. They reveal the inner landscape you walk upon long before your feet touch the ground of a new decision. They show you the terrain of your courage or the erosion of it, the shape of your fears or the unraveling of them, the contours of your destiny or the ways you have abandoned it. And the soul, once awakened, cannot return blindly to the old terrain without feeling the weight of its own compromise. This is why the dreams intensify as you grow closer to truth, not because danger has increased, but because your awareness has. A sleeping spirit does not notice subtle manipulation. A drifting spirit does not sense slow corrosion. A numbed heart cannot feel itself being emptied. But once the flame returns, once even the smallest ember of consciousness begins to glow again, every distortion becomes visible. Every compromise feels heavier. Every false kindness tastes bitter. Every easy excuse rings hollow. Every misalignment aches like a bruise. For when the spirit awakens, even the gentlest lie becomes intolerable. And this awakening is not soft. It never has been. The soul does not rise politely. It rises with force, like dawn breaking through the last defenses of the night. You feel it in your chest first, an unexplainable stirring, a sense that the life you have been living is too small for the size of the person you are meant to become. You sense it in your thoughts, a quiet rebellion against the limitations you once accepted without question. You sense it in your habits. The old patterns feel foreign now, as if your hands no longer know how to hold the chains that once felt natural. You sense it in your relationships, not through judgment, but through clarity, recognizing which connections nourish your soul and which ones suffocate it. Awakening is not a moment. It is a progression. First, you recognize the dream. Then you recognize the message. Then you recognize yourself within it. Then you recognize the life you can no longer return to. And in this progression, something sacred takes shape. You begin to see that every dream where you were running was never about danger, it was about pursuit. Your own potential was chasing you, begging you to stop hiding behind half-lived days and half-hearted choices. The future version of you, stronger, wiser, fiercely aligned, ran behind you, not to frighten you, but to reclaim you. You begin to see that every dream where you were falling was never about failure, it was about grounding. The soul drops you only when you build on illusions. The fall is not condemnation, the fall is correction. You begin to see that every dream where you wandered a maze was not punishment, it was exposure. The maze revealed how many voices were steering you, how many influences were shaping you, how much of your life was borrowed, not chosen. You begin to see that every dream where you lost your voice was not trauma, it was revelation. A revelation that you surrendered your authenticity long before the dream made you aware of it. You begin to see that every dream of decay, of water rising, of treasures vanishing, of paralysis gripping your limbs was not a sign of doom, it was a sign of depletion, a sign that your soul could no longer carry the weight of a life built without truth. And you begin to see that every dream of wings breaking, eyes closing, doors hesitating, was not the world conspiring against you, it was your own spirit crying out for liberation. For the soul has its own way of speaking, and once you understand its language, nothing remains the same. And it is here, once the illusions have been stripped and the messages become clear, that you finally realize the most important truth of all. You were never being targeted because you were cursed. You were being targeted because you were valuable. Only the blessed are hunted by distraction. Only the destined are stalked by doubt. Only the spiritually significant are pulled by forces trying to steal their clarity. Only the soul with purpose experiences dreams designed to wake them. This is why the dreams feel so heavy. Purpose makes you a target, not for destruction, but for awakening. And once you awaken, you begin to reclaim what was drained. You reclaim your voice no longer hesitant, but steady. You reclaim your vision no longer blurred, but luminous. You reclaim your discipline no longer a struggle, but a calling. You reclaim your boundaries no longer fragile, but fortified. You reclaim your purpose no longer abstract, but urgent. You reclaim your identity no longer borrowed, but born again. And as each piece returns, the soul regains its shape. You rise from the dream world, not frightened, but fortified, not confused, but clarified, not weakened, but weaponized with wisdom. For what is a weapon, truly, if not clarity sharpened by truth? And clarity, once awakened, does not stay quiet. It begins to walk through your life like a new presence, illuminating every room inside you, cleansing every corner, exposing every shadow, calming every storm. This is the moment when the dreams no longer chase you. You begin to chase them, to understand them, to decipher them, to follow their direction. Because dreams no longer frighten the awakened soul, dreams guide it. And the monologue now moves toward the rising, toward the transformation that occurs after the soul has seen too much truth to ever return to sleep. And when the last dream loosens its grip on your drifting consciousness, when the final symbol settles into the quiet soil of your understanding, you awaken not into morning, but into yourself, as if the night had been a long corridor leading you back to the truth. You abandon somewhere between responsibility and distraction. You rise with the strange clarity of someone who has seen their own soul from the outside, who has witnessed the fractures and the promises, the warnings and the invitations, and now knows that nothing happening within them is accidental. For dreams do not waste their breath on the indifferent. Dreams do not pursue the hopeless. Dreams do not call out to those who have no destiny left to claim. They come only to the one who has forgotten how extraordinary they truly are. And in that awakening, the world does not feel smaller, it feels newly formed. You walk into your own life like a traveler returning to a homeland you once loved, but abandoned for easier landscapes. The light feels different, not because it has changed, but because your eyes finally have. Every blessing feels heavier now, not as a burden, but as a responsibility, a sacred trust placed into hands that have been restored. Every choice feels sharper, not as pressure, but as opportunity. Every breath feels intentional, as if the air itself were urging you forward into a future that has been waiting too patiently for you to arrive. The dreams no longer linger like omens, they settle like foundations. Not to haunt you, but to steady you. Not to frighten you, but to forge you. Not to expose weakness, but to prepare strength. You no longer look at the darkness as something hunting you. You see it as something that has lost its claim on you. For a soul awakened to its own value becomes untouchable in a way that the world cannot explain. The forces that once drained you lose their permission. The illusions that once seduced you lose their shine. The voices that once controlled you lose their authority. And the excuses that once comforted you lose their sweetness. For when a soul discovers its worth, every false kindness tastes like poison. And so you rise not dramatically, not loudly, but unmistakably. You rise in the quiet strength of someone who no longer negotiates with anything that threatens their future. You rise in the fierce humility of someone who knows exactly how close they came to losing themselves. You rise in the reverent courage of someone who finally understands that gifts are not given for comfort but for contribution, that abundance is not assigned to fill the ego but to fulfill a purpose. Your steps become deliberate. Your choices become disciplined. Your heart becomes discerning. Your spirit becomes sovereign. And sovereignty, the rightful governance of your own soul, is the one thing darkness can never mimic, never counterfeit, never steal. For sovereignty is not power over others, it is power over yourself, power over your impulses, power over your fears, power over your patterns, power over the illusions that once disguised themselves as compassion, Power over the dreams that once tried to warn you of what you refused to see. Now you see. And seeing changes everything. For the first time, you stop fearing the dreams. You begin thanking them for chasing you when you would not move, thanking them for shaking you when you refused to feel, thanking them for revealing what your pride would not admit, thanking them for unveiling what your comfort tried to bury, thanking them for insisting that you wake up from a life too small for your destiny. And now, fully awake, standing in the luminous stillness of a soul returned to itself, you feel something you have not felt in a long time, peace. Not the peace of avoidance, not the peace of denial, but the peace that comes after a battle you finally stopped avoiding. The peace that comes when your inner world aligns with truth. The peace that comes when you choose growth over comfort, purpose over passivity, integrity over illusion. The peace that comes when your dreams no longer need to shout to reach you. And as you breathe into this peace, a final realization settles over you like a mantle placed upon the shoulders of someone ready for their calling. You were never being targeted to be destroyed. You were being targeted because you carry light. Light attracts both blessing and opposition, not because you are cursed, but because you matter. And now that you know this, now that the dreams have spoken and you have listened, you step forward with the kind of certainty that can only come from revelation. A certainty that no whisper, no distraction, no hidden influence can drain your blessing again. Not because life becomes easier, but because you have become unstealable. For the soul that has awakened is the soul that can no longer be touched by the shadows, that once fed on its sleep. You cross the threshold in your waking life the same way you hesitated to in your dreams, but this time you do not pause. You step through, and everything begins.